It's Quinn. How's it going? You may feel like you're giving it all you have, but obviously things are tough out there. We're working on all of it, but in particular, you, our listeners and readers, and viewers, whatever, have asked for over and over more examples of fight and actual progress that you can see and touch and feel. And in these, the new second batch of conversations in partnership with our best friends at Run for Something, we're going to give you more of exactly what you're asking for. Going forward, not every conversation will be the same. So some like today might feature a single guest, a candidate or an alum or an incumbent, I guess, and others might feature two guests. But all of them are sourced from the Run for Something pipeline. So they could be candidates or they could be among the graduating classes. But these are no doubt the next generation leaders of this country. For example, today I'm going to introduce you to an incredible candidate who's running for a local office in their home state that is specifically working on something they can and you can see and touch and feel, an issue that they were born into and care about deeply, that they represent. And it's important, I believe, that we paint that picture because there's got to be something you care about in your community that you wish you could, if not just fight for, but represent. We're going to talk about what they're working on and why, where they've made progress, where they've struggled, and either tactics and strategies that might be transferable to other school districts or towns or cities or whatever. I do have a few asks for you though, because this person has stood up to do their thing. If these conversations inspire you, you can do two things today. Because to be clear, again, it's not their job to save us. They're working on one specific thing. I'm excited to share that with you. After you listen, it's your turn. One, find out what office you or a young person that you love and trust can run for at runforwhat.net. Two, find and support incredible candidates who are running right now, who are endorsed by Run for Something and other incredible groups we love and trust at whatcanido.earth. And three, share these conversations. Send people the link. If you and I both need this desperately, there's a lot more people that do. So please do that. As always, you can send us feedback at questions@importantnotimportant.com. Let's go meet our guest today, Quinny Perez. Quinny Perez, welcome to the show. Thanks for jumping on.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Quinny, I got to tell you, not a lot of people with our name.
Yeah. Yeah, when I saw that, I was like, oh, yes, this is going to be a great time.
It's so rare. I was so excited. Besides all of the amazing things you're doing for farm workers and agriculture and soil, it's a great name.
We had to make our name for ourselves.
100%. There we go. Quinny Perez, please introduce yourself if you can and tell us a little bit about the very specific office you are running for.
Like you said, my name is Quinny Perez, and I'm running for Orange County Soil and Water Conservation District Seat 1. It is an elected position. What it really focuses on, like I would say that it's more of an advocacy role than it is like a legislative or like a tax authority. Because of that, like it lends itself to be more for like an advocacy role. One of the main jobs is to educate people on things like land and water management, advocating for the environment, advocating for farm workers, advocating for any issue that is affected in my county. That's something that I really want to focus on. I think this role can be used to, better people's lives.
I love that. And often in U.S. politics, more on the national or state level, you see folks maybe sweep into jurisdictions that they don't know that well or haven't been part of, or maybe they were, or whatever it might be. But you grew up in Ocala.
So yeah, Ocala is like a very environmental and agricultural focused area in North Florida, like North Central Florida. Growing up there, I was around farms all the time. My parents are agricultural workers themselves. They work in the equine. Big part of Ocala. Ocala is known to be the horse capital of the world. You'll have a lot of people come in and sell horses, especially race horses. Big industry there. And we have places like Rainbow Springs, Silver Springs there, which are like our waterways that we are really trying to preserve in that area.
Obviously, and this is something that I feel like especially kids now really struggle with, but in the US so many kids just don't have access to. It's one thing if you're a family, I believe Mexican immigrants working in agriculture, like you didn't really have a choice but to have a relationship with the land and the water and the soil. When did you have this moment where you felt like I needed to do more. I needed to use this relationship and how I grew up and how I'm working in it now to represent uh, this relationship. Does that make sense?
So I work in the medical cannabis industry,
Hmm.
and I work in my cultivation and harvesting part of the industry. And a lot of the people who I work with are immigrants of like my Hispanic descent, Latin my descent. A lot of Venezuelans, Mexicans, and a lot of them struggle to like afford a place to live, or very much like the immigrant stories that you're often familiar with. I've always been very involved in immigrant issues, just because it's a very personal thing that my to me, my parents came to this country. I could tell you a story of my mother. She came to this country under a false bottom of a van while pregnant with my sister at 16. I do the work that I do to honor those sacrifices that my parents made to give us a better life. Ever since like 2016, when Trump decided to run for office, and the first thing he did was disparage Mexican immigrants, that kind of motivated me to change where I was. It was just something so personal to me that I just did a 180 in my career, and I've just been doing that for the last decade.
Well, thank you for sharing all that, and thank you for stepping up. Big thing I'm interested in personally, and I think our listeners are always interested in, is not just, oh, this is the cool science or the cool whatever someone is doing, or health or whatever. It's why they feel like they have to do it. And I really thank you for explaining that a little bit. Obviously, again, since Trump, as everything is getting harder, obviously the agriculture in Georgia, in Florida, in Central California, so many of these places are really changing, our soy production and who's buying it and who's not all over the place. You are choosing to, even if you were not to get elected, to stand in for people, the people who grow our food and tend the land, or medical marijuana, which provides relief to so many people. But they're usually the most invisible in these conversations, right? When we're talking about heat protections or, like you said, affordability of anywhere to live. Why is it so important to you to do that?
Because they are being targeted right now. My parents and my other relatives, they aren't the most educated, like when it comes to like school, because they were kind of forced to stop their education so that they can tend to their families and provide. They aren't the most political people, but when an issue like immigration comes up, they are really on top of it. It's a very personal thing.
Yeah.
My parents are scared. I know friends who have know people who have been picked up and haven't been able to contact them. So these are real stories, that they're personal, and that's why I fight for them. But like it's just people that I've been advocating for my whole life. I've lived in these communities, and I know the struggles from these people. A lot of them are day laborers, and the relation it has to the environment is, if we have natural disasters, these people aren't able to work. So I think it's on us to be able to help through mutual aid and other advocacy to support these people who are not just farm workers, they're service industry workers. They're everywhere in our community, and I think we need to recognize and appreciate them a little bit more.
And they're people.
Exactly.
Their parents and grandparents and children often the time, or uncles, aunts, whatever it might be, who,
Hmm.
are attempting to build a life for themselves, much less for their families, like it sounded like your mother did. So you've been advocating for 10 years. Tell me about how this office in the Soil and Water Conservation District came across sort of your desk, your awareness, and what made you want to do it. Because, like you said, it's really an advocacy role, right? It's nonpartisan. I don't believe there's any tax funding to it. I was looking up the Virginia equivalent here. Why this seat?
Like I said, I work in agricultural industry when it comes to medical cannabis, and when it comes to this role, like one of the requirements is for you to have either be working in agriculture or like have retired from agriculture. So
Okay.
I felt like I was qualified on that end, and then just like the passion I have for my advocating for our farm workers, them being the people who ultimately like provide the food that we have on our kitchen tables, affordable food on our kitchen tables. And if we don't have these workers, and if we're not supporting the farmers as well, then we're going to be paying that price ultimately.
You're also in one of the fastest growing counties, I think,
Counties.
in the
Mhm.
country. It's crazy. For a while, it was Arizona, and now this part of Florida is really exploding. As someone who's trying to advocate even more formally for soil and water and the people who tend to those, how do you imagine advocating for them while balancing this crazy growth in industry and things like that are coming into the county?
Like I said, I've been involved in the work for the last 10 years, and over that time, I've been able to build a lot of relationships with different legislators, county government officials, many people from different parts, my community leaders. One of my main goals through this job is to be able to just direct lobbying with these officials when it comes to issues that I know people are concerned about in my community.
I love that. I mean, it's the relationships of the whole thing, right?
Hmm. Yeah,
However you can tend to those and use them and get
yeah.
someone's ear who might otherwise not be as connected to the community and the issues and the land and the
Mhm.
water.
Exactly, and I've been fortunate enough to earn the endorsements of officials like Representative Dr. Ana Villascamani, big name in that area, Senator Victor Torres, Representative Sean Young, Representative Rita Harris, a lot of big effective leaders in that area, and that's because I've been working in the county, like on all different kinds of issues, not just immigrant issues. I've worked with Senator Carlos Guillermo Smith when he was a state representative, and we advocated for the Puerto Rican community throughout Hurricane Maria and other tragedies like the Pulse nightclub shooting and things
Mhm.
like that. So I've been involved in the community to a big degree, and I just want to keep advocating. And to be honest, being somebody who is trans, I think Orange County is a good place to run that kind of campaign. Soil and water is a good place to start because I think it's very important for especially someone like me to be able to build that power and community from the ground up in a more organic way.
Literally, right? Um, s-
Yeah.
I appreciate you talking about that part and again, like God, it's wild to look back over the last 10 years and look at everything that has happened and been done throughout the world and the U.S. and Florida, and
Mhm.
you spoke about Pulse. There's a lot of folks who would look to you in a lot of different ways as, again, the daughter of Mexican immigrants and as a trans woman, someone who
Mhm.
grew up working in agriculture to represent them in some way. How much do you think about that and carrying that burden as you're running for, again, an office where you're like, this is a formalized version of what I've been trying to do all along?
I've definitely felt the pressure more recently as I've been getting a little bit more like national attention. If I'm being honest, this is where I want to be. This is the platform that I wanted, and I've been working on for the last decade, so that I can advocate for my community. It's been a lot of pressure. I'm grateful for the support I've gotten in my community. I can approach people in a way that is nonpartisan.
Hmm.
I lived in rural areas, like I've built relationships with conservative elected officials as well in Marion County. One time, I had a group of people, I think, protesting some election or something like that, or some issue, and the Republican Young Democrat reached out to me and gave me a warning that some MAGA people were going to be counter protesting our event. So like I think I have a good pulse on like being able to bring an issue down to a very fundamental way so that we can at least agree on that. I think it's more about moral and ethics. And if we get to the basic of that in an issue, then it doesn't matter if I'm trans or whatever have you. We're just going to be talking about the issue.
No, I love that, and we're trying to refocus on that here as much as we can as well. Just like if there are so many things, 9 out of 10 things that so many folks are disagreeing on because of disinformation or whatever it might be, these core fundamental things that every person deserves, we have to be able to agree on those. And if we don't agree on those, then that's just our work is probably not for you. But if we can, like, let's start there, right? Like you said, it's soil and water. There isn't anyone who doesn't need soil and water, right?
Exactly. Like I think that position is a good place to start because it's nonpartisan. People love the environment. Doesn't matter where you're, what walk of the life you are. The environment is precious to a lot of us.
Absolutely. And if you can help reestablish people's more like visceral, tangible relationship with it, even if they didn't grow up in the agricultural community, or they're new because it's growing so quickly, whatever it might be. You said you've gotten more national attention. I know, like you mentioned, all those incredible endorsements and Run for Something, and I think the Victory Fund. How have you had conversations with other people who might be interested now and going like, oh, I didn't know that's a local office that existed? Basically, how do we get more people to run for local office? How do you use all of that to attract more folks to do the sort of roles you're looking for?
One thing I definitely advocate for is I tell people like it doesn't have to be just like stolen water, like advisory boards. Your cities have advisory boards. That's a good place to start. That way, like you at least have some influence on local policy. If you want to make change, you have to be in the room where that change is made. And I think just even the volunteer positions that people do are very important because they are the ones who are influencing the policy.
An interesting. I'm in Virginia, and I was in Los Angeles for a long time, and I've been kind of all over. But here we've got sort of we're in the city of Williamsburg, which is very old, sort of colonial city, and it's quite small geographically. And there's a bigger county that's growing quickly around it, and figuring that out. And so we've got your city council meetings, and obviously your school board meetings, and you've got all this. And I always tell folks like, look, if you don't go to those meetings, even if you're not serving a role, even just to listen, someone else is going to go. And that's going to be the only voice that council or whoever it might be will hear. And I know it's inconvenient if you're a parent or you're working or whatever, but that's it. That's the math of it. They're going to say, this is who we heard from. And that can go a long way.
Yeah. And that voice is going to represent you ultimately.
Correct.
Whether you like it or not.
Yes, absolutely. I love that. Okay, you're running to give farmers a baseline voice, right, in a world that's changing quickly, in a county that's changing quickly, and you're someone who has represented this county and many different people in so many ways. What does week one look like for you in this new role? What does year one look like for you in this new role?
I think one thing that we need to focus on is like kind of modernizing the Soil and Water Board brand. Good communication is very important instead of just like a yearly change, because people change logos, people change these things. But I think building that foundation, even if it's like, unfortunately, it's not a paid position, it doesn't take much to kind of create a brand around something. And I think that's very important to build legitimacy for the board. I think that would be the first start when it comes to that. And then just keep doing what I've been doing. I'm going to keep going to different meetings that are related to the work that I do and just any other issues that are going on in the county. People love to see someone who is present and who is listening to the community. That's what I've been doing for the last 10 years. Just being present, like I really do want to be a public servant for people, somebody that they can feel comfortable coming to me for any kind of question, not just the environment or agriculture.
I love that. And I love the idea of, again, the self-awareness and knowledge of, I've been doing this long enough. I know what this board can do and can't do. And so much of it's going to be advocacy. So like you said, sort of modernizing the brand and the communications is actually a really big part of that, right? To say, this is what I'm representing. This is at least part of what I'm representing when I go in this room, even if it's not paid. And even if I don't have direct legislative ability, this is who we are. Quinny, in what sounds like all of your free time, which is probably not much at all.
No free time.
my kids are always like, "What are your hobbies?" I'm like, "What are you talking about?" Like, I don't know. I got nothing. This is my hobby. I try to be honest with guests and also our listeners and anyone we talk to. Like, things can feel, especially for certainly for some folks, much more than others, pretty tough right now. Besides interjecting yourself further to say, well, I'm going to be an antidote to these things. I'm going to be a representative. How else are you taking care of yourself right now that other people might be like, oh, that's something I hadn't considered?
Well, for me specifically, like being trans, I've definitely been surrounding myself in the queer community here in Orlando. Mm-hmm. We do have a large, thriving queer community here in Orlando. We have this market called Goblin Market, and it's very queer focused. It always has high attendance. I used to be on the board of the goblin market myself. It's a great space to not think about politics and just be
Yeah.
within community. I recently started attending a support group for the trans community. So it's little things like that, finding the time to just make sure that you surround yourself with some positivity is very important, especially in this kind of fight. Because if I'm elected, I would likely be the first elected trans woman in the state of Florida. It's no pressure.
No, no pressure. Well, I have such huge admiration for what you're doing. I love that, again, you're aware of what you have been doing and building and why you've been doing it and why this seat and how, like you just said, you're already looking for these positive environments that can reinforce yourself and your ability to do this work. Because if you can't do the work, it doesn't matter.
And I really want to see representation like me, like more out there. And I want people to feel confident enough to see someone like me and be like, hey, if they can do it, then why not I?
I love that. I think that's beautiful. Quinny, where can the people find you online? Support your campaign?
Sure. So you can find me at quinnyforsoilandwater.com. You can also find me on social media on Facebook and Instagram at my Quinny for Soil and Water. I'm always out in the community, like I said, so I tend to update everything. We have phone banking going on right now as well. So like you don't have to live in the district to make phone calls. And I think that's one way that people can really contribute to our campaign. And you can also donate it as well. On my website, you can find our donation link. We are a grassroots campaign, a very small campaign, but I do have plans on working on digital ad messaging as we get closer to the election. So that's the best way people can support our campaign.
I can't thank you enough for all the work you've been doing the past 10 years and for being so candid and putting yourself out there. Yeah, we do need more folks like you to do it. And I hope we can make you feel safe and supported just to start with, if not encouraged to go further and to really do this. Obviously, again, none of us are anything without soil and water. So having someone like you working on it would be pretty great.
I really appreciate you, giving me the platform, an opportunity, to speak to people about, why I'm doing this. I thank you for that.
No, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for your time. Good luck. You got this. We believe in you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.